The morning Warren Lodge found the woman in his barn was the morning he stopped believing he would die alone in the Nebraska dust. He had risen before dawn as usual, the October chill of 1884 biting through his worn flannel shirt as he crossed the yard to check on his horses. The ranch sat 20 miles outside Scottsbluff, isolated enough that Warren sometimes went weeks without seeing another soul. At 32 years old, he had grown accustomed to the silence, to the way his own voice sounded strange when he spoke to the animals, to the empty chair across from him at every meal. The barn door creaked as he pushed it open, and that was when he heard it. A sharp intake of breath, barely audible over the shuffling of hooves. Warren froze, his hand instinctively moving to the rifle he kept by the door. Thieves were uncommon this far out, but not unheard of. "I know someone is in here," he called out, his voice steady despite the sudden hammering of his heart. "Show yourself." Silence. Then from the hayloft above, a woman's voice thin with fear. "Please do not shoot. I mean no harm." Warren lowered the rifle slightly, confusion replacing caution. "A woman out here." He moved to the ladder, looking up into the shadows. "Come down where I can see you." There was a long pause, then the rustling of hay. A figure emerged from the darkness, climbing down the ladder with trembling hands. When she reached the bottom and turned to face him, Warren felt his breath catch. She was younger than him, perhaps 24 or 25, with dark hair that hung in tangled waves past her shoulders. Her dress was torn and dirty, her face smudged with dust and marked by a fading bruise along her left cheekbone. But it was her eyes that struck him most. They were the color of storm clouds, wide with terror and exhaustion, yet holding a defiant spark that suggested she had not yet given up despite whatever circumstances had brought her to his barn. "I am sorry," she said, her voice stronger now. "I needed somewhere to hide." "I will leave if you want me to." Warren set the rifle against the wall, holding up his hands to show he meant no threat. "Hide from what?" She flinched at the question, wrapping her arms around herself. Even in the dim morning light filtering through the barn slats, he could see she was shaking. "From someone. From a man. Please, I cannot tell you more than that." Something in her voice, in the genuine fear that shadowed her features, made Warren's decision for him. He had been raised by a mother who taught him that a man's worth was measured by how he treated those weaker than himself. Whatever this woman had run from, she needed help. "You are freezing," he said simply. "And you look like you have not eaten in days. Come inside. I will make breakfast." She stared at him as if he had spoken a foreign language. "You would help me. You do not even know who I am." "No, but I know you are scared and cold and hiding in my barn. That is enough." He gestured toward the barn door. "My name is Warren Lodge. This is my ranch, and you are welcome to stay until you feel safe enough to tell me what brought you here." Tears welled in her eyes, and she quickly brushed them away. "Faye," she whispered. "My name is Faye Summers." Warren nodded, committing the name to memory. "Well, Faye Summers, let us get you inside before you catch your death out here." She followed him across the yard, keeping a careful distance as if ready to bolt at any moment. Warren pretended not to notice, maintaining a steady pace toward his small ranch house. It was not much, just 4 rooms built sturdy against the Nebraska winds, but it was clean and warm and infinitely better than a barn loft. Inside, he gestured to a chair by the fireplace. "Sit. I will stoke the fire and get some coffee going." Faye lowered herself into the chair gingerly, as if testing whether it might collapse beneath her. She watched Warren's every movement as he built up the fire and filled the coffee pot from the water bucket. Her eyes darted to the door repeatedly, mapping escape routes. "I am not going to hurt you," Warren said quietly, not looking at her as he sliced bacon into a pan. "And I am not going to force you to tell me anything you are not ready to share. You can stay here as long as you need to." "Why?" The word came out sharp, suspicious. "Men do not help women without wanting something in return." Warren did look at her then, holding her gaze steadily. "Some men do not. I am not one of them. My mother raised me better than that." Faye's expression softened slightly. "Is she here, your mother?" "No, she passed 6 years ago." "Influenza." He turned back to the stove, cracking eggs into the pan alongside the bacon. "My father died when I was 16. Been running this place on my own since then. No wife, no children, no, never found a woman willing to live this far from town, I suppose." He said it matter-of-factly, without self-pity, though the words carried the weight of lonely years. "What about you? Are you married?" "No." Her voice turned bitter. "Though a man tried to make me so against my will." Warren's jaw tightened, but he kept his focus on the cooking. "Is that who you are running from?" She did not answer, and he did not press. Instead, he dished out generous portions onto 2 plates and carried them to the small table. "Eat. You look half-starved." Faye rose hesitantly and joined him at the table. For a moment, she just stared at the food as if it might be a mirage. Then she picked up her fork and began to eat, slowly at first, then with increasing hunger. Warren ate his own breakfast in silence, giving her space to feel safe. When she finally set down her fork, having cleaned her plate completely, she met his eyes with something like wonder. "Thank you. I have not eaten a proper meal in 4 days. How long were you in my barn?" "Just last night. I had been traveling on foot, sleeping in ditches mostly." She wrapped her hands around the coffee cup he had poured for her. "I saw your ranch from the road and waited until dark to slip into the barn. I am truly sorry for trespassing." "Stop apologizing," Warren said gently. "You needed help, and I am glad you found your way here. Now I need to see to the horses and mend a fence in the south pasture. You are welcome to rest inside or come with me if you prefer not to be alone. Whatever makes you comfortable." Faye considered this, clearly weighing her options. "I could help," she offered tentatively. "With chores, I mean." "To earn my keep." "You do not need to earn anything, but if it would make you feel better, I certainly would not turn down an extra pair of hands." He stood, collecting their empty plates. "There are some of my mother's old clothes in the chest in the spare room. They might fit you better than what you are wearing now." Her hands went self-consciously to her torn dress. "I would appreciate that." Warren showed her to the spare room, a small space with a narrow bed and a wooden chest at its foot. "Take your time. I will be in the barn when you are ready." He left her there, returning to his morning chores with a strange lightness in his chest. For the first time in years, his home did not feel empty. Even knowing Faye's presence was likely temporary, even understanding that she was here out of desperation rather than choice, Warren could not help but feel grateful for the company. An hour later, she emerged from the house wearing one of his mother's old work dresses, her hair pulled back in a braid. The bruise on her face stood out more clearly now that she had washed, but her eyes seemed less haunted than before. "It fits well enough," she said, smoothing the fabric self-consciously. "What can I do to help?" Warren handed her a bucket. "The chickens need feeding if you do not mind. The feed is in that barrel there." They worked together through the morning, falling into an easy rhythm. Faye proved capable and willing, never complaining about the work. She scattered feed for the chickens, gathered eggs, and helped Warren repair the broken fence posts in the south pasture. As the sun climbed higher, warming away the morning chill, Warren found himself watching her when he thought she was not looking. There was something remarkable about her resilience, the way she had picked herself up from whatever nightmare she had fled and kept going. By midday, they returned to the house for a simple lunch of bread and cheese. Faye had relaxed somewhat, no longer watching the doors quite so intently. though Warren noticed she still positioned herself with her back to the wall. "This is a good ranch," she said, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them. "You run it all yourself." "I do. It is not as large as some of the spreads closer to town, but it is mine. About 200 acres, give or take. 30 head of cattle, the horses, the chickens. Enough to keep me busy and fed. Lonely, though." Warren met her eyes across the table. "Yes, very lonely." Something passed between them in that moment, an understanding of shared solitude. Faye looked away first, clearing her throat. "I should tell you about why I am running." "Only if you want to." She took a deep breath, as if steeling herself. "There is a man named Marcus Caldwell. He owns the largest saloon in Omaha, along with half the buildings on 3 streets. I worked for him as a server, nothing more, though he wanted more. When I refused his advances, he became angry. He told me I would marry him or I would regret it." Warren felt anger kindle in his chest. "He forced you," he tried. "I fought back, hard enough to escape, but not before he made it clear he would find me wherever I ran. He has connections, money, men who do his bidding. So I left Omaha in the middle of the night with only the dress on my back and what little money I had saved." She met his eyes, her own bright with unshed tears. "I know I cannot run forever. Eventually he will find me. Men like him always do." "Not if someone stands between you and him," Warren said quietly. Faye shook her head. "You do not understand. Marcus is not just some angry suitor. He is dangerous. He has hurt people before, done worse. I cannot ask you to put yourself in that position." "You are not asking, I am offering." Warren leaned forward, his voice firm. "You came to my ranch seeking shelter, and I am giving it to you. If this Marcus Caldwell wants to find you here, he will have to go through me first." "But why? Why would you risk yourself for a stranger?" Warren considered the question, searching for words to explain something he barely understood himself. "Because in the 6 hours since I found you in my barn, this ranch has felt less empty than it has in 6 years. Because you deserve to be safe and free to make your own choices. Because it is the right thing to do." He paused. "And maybe because you are not really a stranger anymore." They stared at him, something shifting in her expression. The fear was still there, but it was joined now by something else. Hope, perhaps, or the beginnings of trust. "You are a good man, Warren Lodge." "I try to be." They spent the afternoon working together again, this time repairing a section of the barn roof that had been leaking. Faye proved quick to learn, handing Warren tools and holding boards steady while he hammered them into place. They talked as they worked, sharing small pieces of their lives. Warren learned that Faye had grown up in Ohio, the youngest of 6 children, and had come west after her parents died, seeking a fresh start. She learned that Warren had always dreamed of raising horses, that his current herd was the foundation of what he hoped would someday become a respected breeding program. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Warren realized he was in trouble. Not the kind Faye had brought with her, but a different sort entirely. He was starting to care for her, starting to imagine what it might be like if she stayed not out of fear but out of choice. That evening, after supper, they sat by the fireplace in comfortable quiet. Faye had found a basket of mending that had belonged to Warren's mother and was working through it with practiced efficiency. Warren whittled a small piece of wood, shaping it into nothing in particular, simply enjoying the peaceful domesticity of the moment. "Tell me about her," Faye said suddenly. "Your mother." Warren smiled, the memory bringing warmth. "She was strong. Not just physically, though she could outwork most men, but strong in spirit. After my father died, everyone expected her to sell the ranch and move to town. She refused. Said she had not spent 20 years building this place just to abandon it when times got hard." He paused, turning the wood in his hands. She taught me everything I know about ranching, about horses, about treating people with respect regardless of their station. I wish you could have met her. I wish that too. She sounds remarkable. She would have liked you. She always said the measure of a person's character was how they handled adversity. You have been through hell these past days, but you are still standing, still fighting. She would have respected that. Faye's eyes glistened in the firelight. I do not feel very strong. Mostly I feel scared and exhausted. Being scared does not make you weak. What matters is what you do despite the fear. Warren set down his whittling. You could have given up. You could have accepted this Marcus's demands to make your life easier. Instead, you ran. You fought for your right to choose your own path. That takes courage. Or stubbornness, she said with a small smile. Sometimes they are the same thing. They fell silent again, but it was a warm silence, full of understanding. When Faye finally rose to retire for the evening, she paused by Warren's chair. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything. For not turning me away, for treating me with kindness, for making me feel human again." Warren stood, meeting her eyes in the flickering firelight. "You do not have to thank me for basic decency, Faye, but you are welcome all the same." For a moment, they stood close enough that Warren could see flecks of silver in her gray eyes, could smell the faint scent of soap and hay that clung to her. Then Faye stepped back, wrapping her arms around herself. "Good night, Warren. Good night, Faye." He watched her disappear into the spare room, then stood staring at the fire long after the door had closed. He was falling for her. It was foolish, premature, possibly dangerous given the threat that followed her. But it was also undeniable. In one day, Faye Summers had awakened something in him he had thought long dead, a hope for companionship, for partnership, for love. The next several weeks fell into a pattern that felt both natural and miraculous to Warren. Each morning, he and Faye rose with the sun and worked the ranch together. She proved herself invaluable, learning quickly and working tirelessly. The horses took to her immediately, and Warren caught himself watching her gentle way with the animals, the soft words she murmured as she brushed their coats and checked their hooves. But it was not just her competence that drew him. It was the way she laughed at his dry jokes, the way she hummed while cooking dinner, the way her face lit up when she spotted a hawk soaring overhead. It was the conversations they shared in the evenings, ranging from profound to silly, never running out of things to say. It was the way his house had transformed from a building into a home. Faye seemed to blossom in the safety of the ranch. The haunted look faded from her eyes, replaced by genuine smiles that made Warren's heart skip. The bruise on her face healed, revealing the full beauty that hardship had hidden. She began to take pride in small improvements around the house, mending curtains, organizing the pantry, planting herbs in a small garden plot near the kitchen door. One evening in early November, as they sat by the fire after supper, Faye set aside her mending and turned to Warren with unusual seriousness. "I need to tell you something," she began, her voice hesitant. Warren felt his stomach tighten with apprehension. "What is it?" "I have been here almost a month now. You have been nothing but kind to me, asking for nothing in return. But I cannot keep living off your generosity forever. I need to start planning for my future." She twisted her hands in her lap. "I have been thinking I should perhaps move into Scottsbluff, find work there. Put some distance between us in case Marcus does come looking." The words hit Warren like a physical blow. He had known this moment might come, but he had not expected it to hurt quite so much. "Is that what you want?" "To leave?" "No," Faye admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I do not want to put you in danger either. The longer I stay, the more likely it is that he will find me, and when he does, anyone sheltering me will become his enemy." Warren set down the bridle he had been repairing and moved to sit beside her on the settee. "Faye, look at me." She raised her eyes to his, and he saw the conflict there, the war between her desire to stay safe and her concern for his well-being. "I told you when you first arrived that you were welcome to stay as long as you needed. That has not changed. In fact, if I am being honest, I do not want you to leave at all. Not now, not when you feel ready, not ever." He took a deep breath, knowing he was about to cross a line that could not be uncrossed. "These past weeks with you here have been the happiest of my life. You have made this place feel alive in ways I did not know I was missing. The thought of you leaving, of this house going back to silence, is unbearable." Faye's eyes widened. "Warren, what are you saying?" "I am saying that I care about you, deeply. I am saying that somewhere between finding you in my barn and watching you gentle that skittish mare last week, I fell in love with you." The words tumbled out, honest and unvarnished. "I know it is too soon. I know you might not feel the same way, but I could not let you leave without you knowing how I feel." Tears spilled down Faye's cheeks, but she was smiling. "You love me." "I do. God help me, I do." She reached up, cupping his face in her hands. "Then you should know that I love you too. I have been falling in love with you since that first morning when you offered me breakfast instead of calling the sheriff. I love your kindness, your strength, the way you see me as a person rather than a problem to be solved. I love the life we have built together here, the rhythm of our days, the easy companionship." Warren felt his heart soar even as concern tempered his joy. "But you are worried about this Marcus. I am terrified of him finding me. But I am more terrified of walking away from you, from this life we have started building. I just do not want my past to destroy your future." Warren took her hands in his, holding them gently. "Then we face it together. If he comes, we will deal with it. But I refuse to let the threat of some bully dictate how we live our lives. You deserve happiness, Faye. You deserve safety and love and a place to call home. Let me give you those things." "You already have," she whispered. Then she leaned forward, closing the distance between them, and kissed him. It was a gentle kiss, tentative and sweet, full of promise and hope. Warren's arms came around her, holding her close, and for that perfect moment, nothing else existed but the two of them and the love growing between them. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Warren rested his forehead against hers. "Stay. Not because you have nowhere else to go, but because you want to be here, with me." "I want nothing more," Faye said, "but I want to do this right. I want us to build something real, something lasting. Not just because I needed rescue, but because we choose each other." "Then we will take our time, do this properly," Warren agreed. "Court each other like civilized people, even though you are already living under my roof and I am already head over heels for you." Faye laughed, the sound like music. "That seems a bit backwards. Everything about us has been backwards from the start. Why change now?" They stayed up late that night, talking about their hopes and dreams about what a future together might look like. Warren spoke of his plans to expand the ranch, to breed horses that would be sought after across the territory. Faye shared her love of gardening, her desire to perhaps keep bees and sell honey in town, to make the ranch not just a place of work but a true home. As November gave way to December, their relationship deepened. Warren courted Faye with all the old-fashioned propriety his mother had taught him, despite the unconventional circumstances. He picked wildflowers for her even as frost began to claim the land. He read to her in the evenings from the few books he owned. He taught her to ride his gentlest horse, watching with pride as she gained confidence in the saddle. Faye, in turn, showed her love through 1,000 small acts. She learned his favorite meals and surprised him with them after long days of work. She repaired his clothes with careful stitches. She left little notes tucked into his coat pockets, simple words of affection that never failed to make him smile. They were careful to maintain propriety, Faye in her room and Warren in his, despite the growing desire that crackled between them. It mattered to both of them to do things right, to build their relationship on a foundation of respect and genuine affection rather than desperation or convenience. In mid-December, Warren rode into Scottsbluff to purchase supplies for the winter and to take care of an errand he had been planning for weeks. The town was small but growing, clusters of buildings spreading out from the main street. He made his way to the general store first, filling his order for flour, sugar, coffee, and other necessities. Then he walked to the small office of the territorial judge, where he filed official papers establishing Faye's residence on his property, creating a legal record that might offer her some protection if Marcus came looking. His final stop was the jeweler, a small shop tucked between the saloon and the bank. The proprietor, an elderly man named Mr. Hanson, greeted him warmly. "Mr. Lodge, good to see you. What can I do for you today?" Warren removed his hat, suddenly nervous. "I need a ring, an engagement ring." Mr. Hanson's weathered face split into a grin. "Do you now? Well, congratulations. I was wondering when you would find yourself a bride. Let me show you what I have." He laid out several options, but Warren's eye was drawn immediately to a simple gold band with a small diamond, elegant in its simplicity. It reminded him of Faye, beautiful without being ostentatious, strong without being harsh. "That one," he said. "Excellent choice. Will there be anything else?" Warren considered, then nodded. "A wedding band to match it. I will need one for myself as well." By the time he returned to the ranch, the winter sun was already setting. Faye met him at the door, her face bright with relief. "I was starting to worry," she said, helping him unload the supplies. "You were gone so long. I had several stops to make." Warren carried the last of the supplies inside, his heart hammering. He had planned to wait, to propose on Christmas or perhaps New Year's, but suddenly he could not imagine waiting another moment. "Faye, come sit with me." She followed him to the settee by the fire, concern flickering across her face. "Is everything all right? Did something happen in town?" "Everything is fine. Better than fine." He took her hands in his, meeting her eyes. "Faye Summers, I know we have only known each other for a few months. I know that by conventional standards, we should wait longer, be more sensible. But I have never been more certain of anything in my life than I am of this. I love you. I want to spend every day for the rest of my life with you. I want to build this ranch into something magnificent together. I want to wake up beside you and fall asleep holding you. I want to make you happy, to keep you safe, to be the man you deserve." He released one of her hands to pull the small velvet box from his pocket, opening it to reveal the ring. "Will you marry me?" Faye stared at the ring, tears streaming down her face. For a long moment she said nothing, and Warren felt fear claw at his throat. Then she launched herself into his arms, nearly knocking him backwards. "Yes, yes, of course I will marry you." She pulled back just enough to look at him, her face radiant despite the tears. "I love you, Warren. I want all of those things too. I want to be your wife, your partner in all things. I want to build a life with you, a family. Yes, 1,000 times yes." Warren's hands shook as he slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, the small diamond catching the firelight. Then he was kissing her, pouring all his love and relief and joy into that kiss, and she was kissing him back with equal fervor. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying at once, Faye held up her hand to admire the ring. "It is beautiful, perfect. You are beautiful, perfect." Warren pulled her close again, hardly able to believe his fortune. Months ago, he had been resigned to loneliness, to a life of solitary work and empty evenings. Now he held in his arms a woman he loved beyond measure, who loved him in return, who had agreed to spend her life with him. "When should we marry?" Faye asked, snuggling against his chest. "Should we wait until spring?" Warren considered. Part of him wanted to ride into town tomorrow and find a preacher, but he also wanted to give Faye the wedding she deserved. "What do you want?" "I want to be your wife as soon as possible," she admitted, "but I also want it to be right. We will need witnesses, and I would like to make a proper dress if I can. Perhaps after the new year. That gives us a few weeks to prepare." "The timing does not matter to me as long as the outcome is the same," Warren said, "but there is one thing we need to discuss. Marcus." Faye tensed in his arms. "What about him?" "When we marry, you will be Faye Lodge. It will provide you some legal protection, make you harder to find if he is still looking. But it also means your name will appear in the territorial records. There is always a chance he could track you through that." "Then let him come," Faye said, her voice hard. "I am done running. I am done letting fear control my life. If Marcus wants to find me, he will discover I am no longer alone and defenseless. I will have a husband who loves me, a home worth protecting, and the courage to stand my ground." Pride swelled in Warren's chest. "That is my brave girl, but I want you to know that if he does come, I will do everything in my power to protect you. I will not let him hurt you. I know. That is why I can finally stop being afraid." She tilted her face up to his. "You built me a palace in your heart, Warren Lodge, and that is worth fighting for." They spent the evening making plans, deciding that they would ride into Scottsbluff together after Christmas to arrange for the ceremony with the circuit preacher who passed through monthly. Faye would need fabric for a dress, and Warren wanted to buy her a proper wedding gift, though she insisted his love was gift enough. Christmas arrived with a fresh blanket of snow that transformed the ranch into something magical. Warren and Faye spent the morning exchanging simple gifts. He gave her a beautiful shawl he had commissioned from a weaver in town. Soft wool dyed a deep blue that matched her eyes. She gave him a new pair of riding gloves she had painstakingly sewn herself, lined with rabbit fur for warmth. They cooked dinner together, a feast by their modest standards, roast chicken and vegetables from the stores they had put by. As they ate, Warren found himself overcome with gratitude. A year ago, Christmas had been just another lonely day. Now he shared it with the woman he loved, his future wife, and the joy of that reality was almost overwhelming. "What are you thinking?" Faye asked, noticing his contemplative expression. "I am thinking that I am the luckiest man alive," Warren said honestly. "I am thinking that I would go through 10 years of loneliness again if I knew they would lead me to you." Faye reached across the table to take his hand. "I used to curse the circumstances that brought me to your barn. Now I see it as the greatest blessing of my life. Everything I endured, every hardship led me to you. That makes it all worthwhile." After dinner, they sat by the fire as snow continued to fall outside. Warren held Faye close, marveling at how perfectly she fit in his arms, how right this all felt. They talked about the future, about children they might have someday, about growing old together on this land they both loved. "I want at least 3 children," Faye said dreamily. "Enough to make the house ring with laughter, but not so many that we cannot give each one proper attention." "3 sounds perfect," Warren agreed. "We will need to add rooms to the house, though, and build a proper school room. I want our children to have education opportunities. You will be a wonderful father, patient and kind, but strong when you need to be. And you will be an amazing mother. Loving and wise, teaching them to be brave like you." They fell asleep there by the fire, wrapped in each other's arms, dreams full of the future they would build together. The week between Christmas and New Year's brought brutal cold, temperatures plummeting well below freezing. Warren and Faye worked together to keep the animals safe and fed, breaking ice on water troughs and ensuring the barn was secure against the wind. The hardship only strengthened their bond, each depending on the other, working as a seamless team. On December 30th, they rode into Scottsbluff together, bundled against the cold. The town was quiet, most people staying indoors when they could. They made their way to the small church at the edge of town, where they found the circuit preacher, Reverend Thompson, preparing for the New Year's service. He was a jovial man in his 50s, his face weathered but kind. When Warren explained their purpose, the Reverend beamed. A wedding. How wonderful! We do not get nearly enough happy occasions out here. When were you thinking? As soon as possible, Warren said. Would you be available this week? I will be passing through again on January 6th. Would that work? It gives you time to arrange for witnesses and make any preparations you need. Warren looked at Faye, who nodded eagerly. January 6th would be perfect. They spent the rest of the afternoon in town, purchasing fabric for Faye's wedding dress and arranging for the sheriff and the general store owner, both decent men Warren had known for years, to serve as witnesses. By the time they rode home, the sun was setting, and both were giddy with excitement and nerves. The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Faye worked on her dress whenever weather kept them inside, her stitches careful and precise. Warren cleaned and organized the house, wanting everything to be perfect. He also made a decision that he had been considering for weeks. On the evening of January 4th, he brought Faye into his bedroom, which she had never entered. Her eyes widened at the sight that greeted her. He had transformed the space. New curtains hung at the windows, cheerful yellow fabric that brightened the room. A beautiful quilt, purchased from a widow in town, covered the bed. Fresh whitewash gleamed on the walls. Wildflowers, somehow preserved despite the season, sat in a vase on the dresser. "Warren," Faye breathed, "it is beautiful." "It is our room now," he said softly. "I wanted it to be special for us. After we marry, this will be our sanctuary, our private place away from the world." Tears filled her eyes. "You did all this for me. I would do anything for you." "This is just the beginning." He pulled her close. "I meant what I said about building you a palace in my heart. This house might be small, but I will spend the rest of my life making sure you feel cherished and loved and valued within these walls." Faye kissed him tenderly. "You already have. Every day you show me what true love looks like. You rescued me from my nightmare and gave me a dream I never dared imagine." The morning of January 6th dawned clear and cold, the sky a brilliant blue that seemed to promise good fortune. Faye woke early, her stomach fluttering with nerves and excitement. Today she would become Warren's wife. Today she would truly become Faye Lodge, belonging fully to this place and this man who had captured her heart so completely. She dressed carefully in the gown she had made, simple white cotton with lace at the collar and cuffs. It was not fancy, but it was beautiful in its simplicity, and she knew Warren would love it. She braided her hair and pinned it up, leaving a few soft curls to frame her face. Her hands shook as she fastened the small locket Warren had given her for Christmas, the only jewelry she wore besides her engagement ring. Warren waited for her in the main room, dressed in his best suit. When she emerged from the bedroom, his face transformed with awe. "Faye," he whispered, "you are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen." "And you are the most handsome man in all of Nebraska," she replied, though her voice wavered with emotion. They rode to town together, arriving at the church to find Reverend Thompson waiting with the sheriff and the general store owner and his wife, who had asked to attend. The small sanctuary was cold but welcoming, sunlight streaming through the windows. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt. Warren and Faye stood before the Reverend, holding hands, eyes locked on each other as they spoke their vows. I, Warren Theodore Lodge, take you, Faye Margaret Summers, to be my lawfully wedded wife. I promise to love you, honor you, cherish you, and protect you all the days of my life. I promise to stand by your side through prosperity and hardship, through joy and sorrow. You are my partner, my love, my home. This I vow before God and these witnesses. Faye's voice was thick with tears but steady as she spoke her own vows. I, Faye Margaret Summers, take you, Warren Theodore Lodge, to be my lawfully wedded husband. I promise to love you, honor you, cherish you, and support you all the days of my life. I promise to stand by your side through prosperity and hardship, through joy and sorrow. You are my rescuer, my love, my home. This I vow before God and these witnesses. Warren slid the wedding band onto her finger, and she did the same for him. Then the reverend pronounced them husband and wife, and Warren kissed his bride as the small congregation applauded. They signed the marriage certificate, making their union official in the eyes of both God and the law. Faye signed her new name with pride, Faye Margaret Lodge. She was no longer the frightened woman hiding in a barn. She was a wife, a partner, a woman with a home and a future. After the ceremony, the general store owner's wife surprised them with a small cake she had baked, and they celebrated with coffee and conversation in the church hall. It was not a grand affair, but it was perfect. Surrounded by people who wished them well, Warren and Faye began their married life with joy and hope. As the sun began to set, they made their way home, riding side by side. The ranch looked different to Faye now, no longer just a refuge but truly home. This was her land, her life, her future spreading out before her in endless possibility. Inside the house, Warren built up the fire while Faye changed into a simpler dress. When she returned to the main room, he was waiting, holding out his hand to her. "May I have this dance, Mrs. Lodge?" She laughed, even though there was no music. "I would be honored, Mr. Lodge." He pulled her close and they swayed together in the firelight, moving to a rhythm only they could hear. Warren hummed softly, an old melody his mother had loved, and Faye rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Are you happy?" he murmured against her hair. "Happier than I ever thought possible. You gave me everything, Warren. Safety, love, a place to belong. How could I be anything but happy? You gave me just as much. Purpose, companionship, love. This house was just walls and a roof before you. You made it a home." They danced until the fire burned low. Then Warren took her hand and led her to their bedroom, to the space he had prepared with such care. He closed the door softly behind them, shutting out the world, creating a haven for just the two of them. "I love you," Faye whispered as he took her in his arms. "My husband, my heart." "I love you," Warren replied. "My wife, my everything." That night they consummated their marriage with tenderness and passion, learning each other's bodies and hearts, becoming truly one. Faye had known fear and violence at Marcus's hands, but Warren showed her that intimacy could be gentle, could be an expression of love rather than power. In his arms, she felt safe enough to be vulnerable, loved enough to be brave. Afterward, they lay tangled together, skin against skin, hearts beating in synchrony. Warren traced lazy patterns on Faye's shoulder, marveling at the reality of her in his bed, in his life forever. "Tell me what you are thinking," Faye murmured sleepily. "I am thinking that I want to wake up like this every morning for the rest of my life. I am thinking that I am the luckiest man in Nebraska, possibly the world. I am thinking that I love you more than I have words to express." Faye tilted her face up to kiss him softly. "Then we are equally lucky, because I feel exactly the same way." They drifted to sleep wrapped in each other's arms, safe in the knowledge that they belonged to each other completely, bound by vows and love and the unshakable belief that they were meant to be together. The winter months passed peacefully. Warren and Faye settled into married life with an ease that felt natural, as if they had been together for years rather than months. They worked the ranch as partners, making decisions together, supporting each other through the challenges that winter always brought. In the evenings, they retreated to the warmth of their home, cooking meals together, reading aloud, making love, talking about everything and nothing. In late February, Faye began to suspect she might be pregnant. Her monthly courses had always been irregular, so she was not certain at first, but as the weeks passed and other symptoms appeared, the possibility became probability. She waited to tell Warren until she was sure, not wanting to raise false hopes. On a mild evening in early March, as they sat together after supper, she finally found the courage to share her news. Her heart raced as she took his hand. "Warren, I need to tell you something. I think I am with child." He stared at her, his expression unreadable for a long moment. Then his face broke into the most joyous smile she had ever seen. "Truly, we are going to have a baby. I believe so. It is still early and I cannot be completely certain, but all the signs are there." Warren pulled her into his arms, holding her close, and she felt moisture on his cheeks. He was crying, tears of joy streaming down his face. "A baby, our baby. Faye, you have made me the happiest man alive. You are not disappointed that it happened so quickly?" "We have only been married 2 months. Disappointed? How could I be disappointed by such a blessing?" He pulled back to look at her, cradling her face in his hands. "I love you, and I already love this child we created together. There is no timeline on joy, no schedule for miracles. This baby is a gift, and I am grateful beyond words." Over the following months, they prepared for the arrival of their child. Warren added a small room to the house specifically for the nursery, working tirelessly to ensure it was ready. Faye sewed tiny clothes and blankets, her hands crafting each piece with love and care. They argued playfully about names, Warren favoring traditional choices while Faye preferred something more unique. As Faye's belly grew, Warren became even more attentive, taking on extra chores to spare her the hardest work. He brought her wildflowers, rubbed her aching feet, read to her in the evenings when she was too tired to do much else. Faye had never felt so cherished, so completely loved. In early June, as summer heat began to bake the Nebraska plains, Faye knew her time was near. She had engaged the services of a midwife from Scottsbluff, a capable woman named Mrs. Patterson, who had delivered half the babies in the territory. When Faye's labor began on a bright morning, Warren rode to fetch her, his face pale with worry and excitement. The labor was long and difficult, lasting through the day and into the night. Warren stayed by Faye's side the entire time, holding her hand, wiping her brow, murmuring words of encouragement even as he silently prayed for her safety. He had never felt so helpless, so desperate for everything to be all right. Finally, as dawn broke on a new day, their son was born. His first cries filled the house, strong and healthy, and Warren felt tears of relief, and joy streamed down his face. Mrs. Patterson cleaned the baby and placed him in Faye's arms, and Warren looked down at his wife and newborn son with awe. "He is perfect," Faye whispered, exhausted but radiant. "Look at him, Warren. We made this beautiful boy." Warren traced a gentle finger down his son's tiny cheek, marveling at the miracle in his arms. "He is incredible. You are incredible. Thank you for this gift, Faye. Thank you for our family." They named him William Theodore Lodge, William for Warren's father and Theodore for Warren's middle name. Little Will, as they quickly began calling him, had his mother's gray eyes and his father's dark hair. He was healthy and strong, with a set of lungs that ensured his parents knew whenever he was hungry or wet or simply wanted attention. The first months of Will's life were exhausting but magical. Warren discovered depths of love he had not known existed, watching his son grow and change daily. Faye proved to be a natural mother, patient and nurturing, somehow managing to care for their baby while still helping with the ranch work. They took turns walking the floor with Will during fussy nights, supporting each other through the challenges of new parenthood. As summer gave way to fall, their little family found its rhythm. Will grew plump and happy, his smiles lighting up the house. Warren found himself working harder than ever, driven by the need to provide for his family, to ensure they had everything they needed not just to survive but to thrive. One evening in late October, almost exactly a year since he had found Faye in his barn, Warren stood on the porch watching the sunset. Faye joined him, Will drowsy in her arms. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, leaning against him. "I am thinking about how much has changed in a year. This time last year I was alone, convinced I would spend my life that way. Now I have everything I ever wanted and so much more than I ever dared dream of." Faye kissed his cheek. "We both do. I was running for my life, terrified and hopeless. You saved me, Warren. You gave me a reason to hope, to dream, to believe in love again." "You saved me too," he said softly. "From loneliness, from a half-life of going through motions without meaning. You and Will, you are my purpose, my joy. You are the palace I built in my heart, and every day I fall more in love with both of you." They stood together watching the sun sink below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink and purple. Will dozed between them, safe and loved. The ranch spread out around them, theirs to build and shape and pass on someday to their children. Life on the ranch continued its steady rhythm through the seasons. Warren expanded his horse breeding program, gaining a reputation for quality animals. Faye's garden flourished, and she began selling her honey and preserves in town, earning money of her own and pride in her accomplishments. Will grew from infant to toddler, learning to walk and talk, trailing after his father around the ranch with determined steps. In the spring of 1887, Faye discovered she was pregnant again. This time, the news was expected but no less joyful. Warren swept her into his arms, spinning her around as she laughed. Will, now almost 2 years old, seemed to sense something special was happening and clapped his hands in delight. "Another baby," Warren said wonderingly. "Our family keeps growing. Are you happy about it?" Faye asked, though his expression made the answer clear. "I am thrilled. I love being a father. I love watching you be a mother. I love the life we are building together." He placed a gentle hand on her still, flat belly. "This child is as much a blessing as Will was." Their daughter was born in November, arriving more quickly than her brother had, as if impatient to join the family. They named her Rose Catherine Lodge, and she was tiny and perfect, with strawberry blonde hair that neither parent could account for until Warren remembered his grandmother had been a redhead. Will was fascinated by his baby sister, wanting to help with everything. Under careful supervision, he learned to hold her, to fetch diapers, to sing to her when she fussed. Warren and Faye watched their children together with full hearts, amazed by the family they had created. The years that followed were busy and full. The ranch prospered under their joint stewardship, growing from a modest operation to one of the most respected in the region. Warren's horses became sought after, and Faye's gardens and bees produced more than enough for them to sell the surplus. They added rooms to the house as needed, transforming it from a small cabin into a proper home. Will grew into a serious boy with his father's work ethic and his mother's kind heart. Rose was more mischievous, keeping her parents on their toes with her adventurous spirit. In 1889, they welcomed another son, James, and in 1892, their youngest daughter, Anne. The house rang with laughter and occasional tears, with the chaos and joy that came with raising 4 children. Through it all, Warren and Faye's love only deepened. They faced challenges together: harsh winters that killed livestock, droughts that withered crops, illnesses that swept through the family. But they faced them as a team, drawing strength from each other, never wavering in their commitment. One worry that never quite left them was Marcus Caldwell. For the first few years, Faye lived with the fear that he might appear at any moment, seeking revenge. But as time passed and he never came, that fear faded into background noise, then into memory. They never learned whether he had given up the search or simply never found the trail that led to Scottsbluff. It did not matter. Faye was beyond his reach now, protected by law and love and a husband who would move heaven and earth to keep her safe. In the summer of 1895, 10 years after they had met, Warren and Faye took an evening to themselves, leaving the children in the capable hands of a neighbor girl. They rode out to a hill overlooking their ranch, watching the sun set over land they had built together. "You remember the day we met?" Faye asked, leaning back against Warren as they sat on a blanket. "Every detail. You were hiding in my barn, terrified and beautiful and brave. I thought you were the answer to a prayer I had not known I was praying. I thought you were going to turn me away or worse. Instead, you offered me breakfast and kindness and eventually your heart." She turned to look at him, her face still as beautiful to him as it had been that first morning. "You really did build me a palace in your heart, you know. Every day you show me what true love looks like." Warren kissed her, a kiss full of 10 years of shared joys and sorrows, of passion that had not dimmed but matured into something even richer. "And you made my heart a place worth living in. Before you, I was just existing, going through the motions. You gave me purpose, love, family. You gave me everything." They made love there on the hillside as the stars emerged, celebrating a decade of marriage with the same passion they had shared on their wedding night. When they finally rode home, stars blazing overhead, they found their children asleep and the house peaceful. Standing in the doorway of each child's room, watching them sleep, Warren felt his heart overflow with gratitude. This was the palace he and Faye had built together, not made of stone and mortar but of love and commitment and shared dreams. Every room held memories. Every corner echoed with laughter. Every inch was sacred because it housed the people he loved most in the world. As the new century approached, the Lodge family continued to thrive. Will, now a young man of 17, had become his father's right hand on the ranch, showing a natural talent with the horses. Rose, at 14, had her mother's green thumb and business sense, managing the garden and bee operation with impressive skill. James, 12, was the dreamer of the family, always reading and talking about far-off places, and Warren and Faye encouraged his curiosity even as they hoped he would stay close to home. Anne, the baby at 9 years old, was a perfect blend of both parents, kind and hardworking and impossibly beloved. Warren and Faye had aged gracefully, both now in their 40s, their faces lined by sun and years but their eyes still bright with love for each other. Their hair showed silver threads, and their bodies carried the marks of hard work and 4 children, but to each other, they were as attractive as they had been as newlyweds. On an autumn evening in 1899, the entire family gathered around the dinner table, a daily ritual they all cherished. The conversation was lively, each child sharing news of their day, Warren and Faye interjecting with questions and gentle guidance. Watching her family, Faye felt tears prick her eyes, overwhelmed by the goodness in her life. After the children had cleared the table and dispersed to their evening activities, Warren found Faye standing on the porch, gazing out at the land they had built together. "What are you thinking about, my love?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "I am thinking about that terrified girl who hid in your barn 15 years ago. She could never have imagined this life, this happiness. Sometimes I still cannot quite believe it is real." "It is real," Warren murmured against her hair. "Every beautiful, messy, chaotic, wonderful moment of it. And it is ours. I never thanked you properly for saving me that day." Warren turned her in his arms to face him. "You thank me every day just by being you, by loving me, by building this life with me. Besides, you saved me just as much as I saved you. We saved each other. I love you, Warren Lodge. More today than yesterday, less than tomorrow. And I love you, Faye Lodge. You are still the palace in my heart, the answer to every prayer, the best decision I ever made." They kissed as the sun set on another day in their life together, the same sun that had risen on a lonely rancher and a frightened woman hiding in his barn 15 years before. But they were not those people anymore. They had transformed each other, grown together, built something lasting and true. Inside the house, their children laughed and argued and lived, filling the space with sound and life. The ranch spread around them, prosperous and peaceful. And in each other's arms, Warren and Faye stood complete, proof that even in the harsh wildness of the frontier, love could not just survive but flourish. The years continued their march, bringing changes and challenges but never diminishing the love at the heart of the Lodge family. Will married a sweet girl from Scottsbluff in 1902, bringing her to live on the ranch and help with the operation. Rose followed in 1906, choosing a young teacher who appreciated her intelligence and business acumen. James, true to his adventurous spirit, became a journalist and traveled extensively, though he always returned home for Christmas and brought tales of the wider world. Anne, the youngest, showed no interest in leaving the ranch, content to work alongside her parents and eventually take over Faye's garden and bee operation. Warren and Faye became grandparents, delighting in each new addition to the family. They watched their children raise families of their own, offering guidance when asked, but respecting their independence. The ranch house expanded again to accommodate visiting family members, becoming a hub of warmth and activity. In the spring of 1914, Warren and Faye celebrated their 30th wedding anniversary surrounded by their children's spouses, and their 8 grandchildren. The house overflowed with people and noise and love. After the official celebration, Warren took Faye's hand and led her away from the chaos to their bedroom, closing the door on the joyful noise. 30 years, he said, pulling her into his arms. It feels like both forever and no time at all. We have built something remarkable, Faye said, looking up at her husband. His hair was fully silver now, his face deeply lined, but his eyes still held the same warmth and love they had held when he first offered her breakfast 30 years before. Not just this ranch or this family, but us. We built something beautiful together. The palace in my heart just keeps growing, Warren said softly. Every year with you, every child and grandchild, every sunrise and sunset we share, you are still the center of it all, Faye. You are still the best thing that ever happened to me. And you are my hero, my love, my home. I would hide in your barn 1,000 times if it meant ending up here, with you, with this life. They made love that night with the tenderness of long familiarity, knowing each other's bodies and hearts as completely as two people could. Afterward, lying tangled together as they had so many thousands of nights before, Warren traced patterns on Faye's shoulder, a gesture that had become habit over the decades. "Tell me what you are thinking," Faye murmured, echoing a question she had asked countless times over the years. I am thinking that I am grateful. For every moment, every challenge, every joy, for you, always for you. For the family we created, the life we built. I am thinking that if I died tomorrow, I would die the happiest man who ever lived. No dying, Faye said firmly, though she smiled. We have grandchildren to spoil and years left together. I am not finished with you yet, Warren Lodge. Good, because I am not finished with you either. They drifted to sleep wrapped in each other's arms as they had done for 30 years, as they would continue to do for years to come. Outside, the Nebraska night was peaceful, the ranch quiet except for the normal sounds of animals settling. Inside the house, children and grandchildren slept under the roof Warren and Faye had built together, testament to a love that had started with an act of kindness and grown into something magnificent. The years passed gently after that. Warren and Faye grew older but remained active, still working the ranch, though they left more and more to their children and grandchildren. They were fixtures in Scottsbluff, respected for their integrity and the family they had raised. People who met them could see the love between them, the way they still held hands when walking, the way they looked at each other as if no one else existed. In the summer of 1920, as they sat together on the porch watching their great-grandchildren play in the yard, Faye leaned against Warren with a contented sigh. "We did well, did we not?" she asked. "We did magnificently," Warren agreed. 4 children, all happy and successful. 8 grandchildren, growing up strong and good. 3 great-grandchildren so far, with more surely to come. A ranch that prospers and will continue to prosper for generations. And most importantly, a love that never wavered, not once in 36 years. When I hid in your barn all those years ago, I was running from one man and his cruelty. I never imagined I would run straight into the arms of a man who would show me what love really meant. You built me a palace in your heart, Warren, but you also built me a palace right here on this earth. This home, this family, this life, it is more than I ever dreamed possible." Warren took her weathered hand in his, bringing it to his lips to kiss her knuckles gently. "You built me the same. You took a lonely rancher who was resigned to living half a life and gave him everything. Purpose, love, family, joy. You are the palace in my heart, Faye, and you always will be." They sat together as the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant colors, their great-grandchildren's laughter floating on the evening breeze. The ranch that had once been Warren's lonely kingdom was now a thriving legacy, full of life and love and future. And at the center of it all sat 2 people who had found each other against all odds, who had built something lasting from desperation and kindness, who had proved that love could transform everything. As darkness fell and the children were called inside, Warren and Faye remained on the porch a while longer, reluctant to end the perfect day. Finally, Warren stood and offered his hand to his wife. "Come, my love, let us go to bed." Faye took his hand, allowing him to help her up, and they walked inside together, their steps slower than they once were, but their hands still clasped tightly. In their bedroom, the one Warren had transformed for her 36 years before, they prepared for sleep with the comfortable routine of decades. Lying in bed, Faye curled against Warren's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Promise me something," she whispered. "Anything. Promise me that no matter what happens, no matter how many years we have left, we will spend them together. Promise me we will never stop building our palace." Warren tightened his arms around her, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "I promise." "Together until the very end and beyond if such things are possible. You are my forever, Faye Lodge. And you are mine, Warren Lodge, my rescuer, my love, my home." They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, the same way they had fallen asleep thousands of nights before, the same way they would fall asleep for whatever years remained to them. Outside, the Nebraska night stretched vast and starlit. Inside, in the house they had built together, love continued to dwell, as warm and bright and enduring as the day it had first sparked between a lonely rancher and a woman hiding in his barn. Their story was not one of grand adventures or dramatic rescues, though it had started with both. It was a story of daily choices to love, to support, to build together. It was a story of kindness repaid 1,000-fold, of fear transformed into courage, of loneliness banished by partnership. It was, in the end, a story of two souls who found each other and refused to let go, who built palaces in their hearts and homes in the world, who proved that sometimes the greatest love stories start with the simplest acts of human decency. And so they lived, Warren and Faye Lodge, surrounded by the fruits of their love, secure in the knowledge that they had found what so many search for and never find. A true partner, a lasting love, a palace built not of stone but of commitment and care and the determination to choose each other, every single day, for all the days of their lives. The final years of their lives were peaceful and full. Warren passed away in his sleep in 1926 at the age of 74, Faye beside him as she had been for over 40 years. She followed him just 2 years later, her children believing she had simply decided she was ready to join the man she loved. They were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch they had built together, their graves marked by simple stones bearing their names and the dates that bracketed lives well lived. The ranch continued, passed down through generations, each one adding their own touches but preserving the foundation Warren and Faye had laid. The story of how they met became family legend, told and retold to children and grandchildren, a reminder that love could spring from the most unexpected places, that kindness was never wasted, that two people committed to building a life together could weather any storm. The palace Warren had built in his heart for Faye lived on in the physical palace they had created together. A thriving ranch, a loving family, a legacy of devotion that would endure long after both of them had gone. It was a palace built not of gold or jewels, but of something far more valuable. Love that never wavered, trust that never broke, and the simple, profound commitment to be there for each other through everything life brought their way. And somewhere, in whatever place souls go when their earthly journey ends, Warren and Faye were together still, building palaces in eternity, their love as bright and true as the day a lonely rancher found a frightened woman hiding in his barn and chose kindness, changing both their lives forever.